Hi, this is Jonah Dempsey, your host of the Human Design Deconditioning Guide, coming at you from the Santa Fe Rail Yard. And it's an interesting day today. It's gotten sunny, but there's the train tracks. So today I'm going to be talking about the not-self themes of the centers in human design. So the undefined centers each have a not-self theme, and it plays out when you feel that center activated, basically. So different things can activate the centers, different people can activate them. Also, when they're not technically activated in that sense, something can happen where that center flares up. And so the not-self themes, they're kind of ever-present, but they're also, you can notice when they're in their extremes too. So I'm hoping that the outcome of this video will be that you'll be more familiar with the not-self themes and you'll know how to recognize them. And they're also in a hierarchy from strongest to weakest. So first of all, when you're looking at your chart, you're seeing that you have some centers that are activated and some that are not activated. These are called defined and undefined. The defined centers will be colored in, and the undefined centers will be white. And the undefined centers are kind of like windows. They're openings where you experience the other, where you take in the world, where the outside can get in. And they're where you can be the most conditioned and the most affected. Now, if you happen to have gates that are activated in those undefined centers, they'll give a particular inflection or a flavor to that not-self theme. For instance, the not-self theme of the undefined spleen is holding on to things that aren't good for you. So everyone who has undefined spleen is going to have some form of this holding on, this clinginess, this feeling, if I just hold on, then I can avoid frustration, or then I can avoid disappointment if you're a reflector, or I can avoid bitterness if you're a projector, and so on. So, because you're always trying to avoid the not-self theme of the type. The manifestor is always trying to avoid anger, generator is avoiding frustration, and so on. And so everyone who has undefined spleen is going to have some version of this. If only I hold on, then I can avoid it, right? So they're going to be holding on tight. But depending on what gates you have activated in that spleen, you're going to have a different inflection. So if you have gate 48 activated, that's the gate of depth, having a depth of solutions, and you have an undefined spleen, it'll be, I'm going to hold on to these solutions that aren't good for me. Even though it's not good for me, it works, and I'm going to hold on to it because of that. Or I'm going to hold on to this because it gives me depth. Or if it's gate 57 that's activated, I'm going to hold on, because that's the gate of intelligence and intuition, I'm going to hold on to things that make me smart. I'm going to hold on to things that make me intuitive. Yeah, it's not healthy for me to do this, but it helps me be smart, and I want to be smart, so I'm going to hold on to it. Or a person even. Well, yeah, that person's not good for me. Yeah, they're really mean to me, and they're not healthy for me, but they're so smart. How could I let them go? So basically, it's going to be holding on to things that give you what that gate wants. For 28, it's meaning and purpose. Yeah, it's not good for me, but I'm just going to hold on to it because it gives me a sense of purpose, and so on. So I'm not going to go too much into the individual gates of each center. I think that would actually probably be like an individual talk for each center, going through those gates and how they play out. But just know that if you have that undefined center in your chart, that's going to be a life theme for you. And then depending on what gates you have activated in that chart, there's going to be different inflections of that theme. And it's also true if you don't have gates activated in that chart, it's a different theme, if you have the whole channels open, or if there are gates activated in an adjacent center pointing at it. Because then you kind of feel like something is missing, right? Then it feels like in that same example of the spleen, say I don't have gate 48, but I do have gate 16 from the throat pointing at it. In that case, I'm going to feel like if only I were deeper, if only I had more solutions, if only I knew how to solve these problems, then everything would be different. So it's going to be more of like a, berating yourself for not having more of that thing. Okay, so The other thing to mention is that the not-self themes of the undefined centers are going to be most prominent for single definition and triple split definition. What definition means is when you look at your chart, you'll notice if you have any centers that are defined, if they're contiguous with each other, that's an area, or if they're all contiguous, that's single definition. Now, I guess they're also pretty strong for reflectors, so that's no definition. A reflector has no activations whatsoever as far as centers go. They have gates activated, of course, but they have no defined centers because they have no channels. And so for them, the not-self themes of the undefined centers will be very strong. Then if you're single definition, where all of your defined centers are contiguously connected, then yes, that'll also be strong. Then if you're a split definition, actually the not-self theme of the bridging gate will be the strongest if you're a simple split, which means you have two different areas of definition, two areas that are separated, and it would only take a single gate to connect them. There's also wide split where it would take, more than one gate to connect them, either a channel or 3 gates up to the maximum possible of 6 gates for a really wide split. So, and then for the wider splits, the centers will be more important as well. So I'm going to go through the hierarchy. I'm going to go from the least impactful to the most impactful, because the not-self themes are not all equal. Like if you have undefined solar plexus and undefined spleen, the undefined solar plexus will be the stronger of the two, and that will thus be the core or the foundation. That'll be the fundamental not-self theme for you. Of course, if you only have one center undefined and you have 8 defined, that one undefined center will always be the strongest for you. So we're going to start with the least impactful, which is the throat. Now again, if this is your only undefined center, it's also the most impactful for you. It is also your not-self foundation in that case. But if you have the throat undefined and anything else undefined, then the throat will be less impactful. Doesn't mean that it's not a theme, it doesn't mean that you don't feel it and it doesn't affect you and so on. It just means that it's less impactful overall, and also that it's like the outermost shell that other people see. If you have an undefined throat, always trying to get attention, and then you also have undefined solar plexus, afraid of confrontation and truth, then your core fundamental foundation of the not-self is going to be that solar plexus. But people don't necessarily see that. They don't see you and go, oh, there's somebody who's really afraid of confrontation and truth. They go, oh, there's somebody who's trying to get attention. So, okay, so the throat is the not-self theme of the undefined throat, trying to get attention. Well, these are people that are just going to love anyone who gives them attention. They often will feel unheard. Sometimes they'll interrupt, although other times they'll just stay quiet. But the not-self theme is basically anytime you feel like you're trying to get someone's attention, that is the undefined throat. Now, this can combine with other not-self themes, like say you also have an undefined ego. The undefined ego is all wrapped up in self-esteem, and it gets really offended and gets its feelings hurt. Anytime you feel your feelings hurt, that's the ego. Whether it's defined or not. But basically with that undefined ego, when it's wrapped up with the undefined throat, it could be, this person's ignoring me, they must be mad at me, I'm either mad at myself, or I feel bad about myself, or some sort of, reaction combining that, the throat and the ego. Or, if you combine it with the spleen, it's like, I'm going to try to get your attention so that I can hold on tightly to you, because that undefined spleen doesn't want to let go. So in any case, they all combine, but the undefined throat is the outermost or the least impactful overall. It's the furthest away, and also that's partly because only 20% of people have undefined throat. So undefined throat is not a very common thing, so in the overall world, it's not like impactful at a global scale as much either. Okay, second one is the undefined sacral. 30% of people have undefined sacral. And obviously if you're a reflector or a projector or a manifestor, you have undefined sacral. So it's the 8th most impactful. It's still not that impactful, but if you have a defined throat, and, you know, I guess if you're a manifestor, because all manifestors have defined throat, then automatically that sacral is the outermost shell, the least impactful one for you. And that's automatically what people will see. They will see, okay, here's someone who does not know when enough is enough, because that's the theme of the undefined sacral. Here's someone who is just going to overdo it. They're going to work too hard. You know, this person's going to be our super slave. And that's really the not self theme for all of you undefined sacral people, because generators always have defined sacral, right? So the projector, the manifestor, the reflector, what they all have in common is this not self theme of amplifying that sacral energy and working way too hard. They're not supposed to work. They're not here to work. If you're a projector, you're not here to work. If you're a manifestor, you know, you can direct people and stuff, but you're not here to do that manual labor type of work that a generator is supposed to do, or that brute force kind of work. So, but of course, you know, especially if they have undefined ego, they'll try to prove to you how good they are at working so hard. And it's true, you do work hard. It's like what Ra Uru Hu said when he got a job, and he has undefined root and undefined sacral, and root is the 7th most impactful, so those are kind of the outermost. So the undefined sacral doesn't know the right measure, we could say, doesn't know when enough is enough, so it's always overdoing it. And then that undefined root is always in a hurry, trying to work super fast. So his coworkers after the first couple of days said, you got to slow down, you're making us look bad, you're making us work faster because you're working so hard and so fast. So, you know, and that's how manifestors and projectors and reflectors get burned out. They get burned out because that undefined sacral is so amped up and so charged up and has such a buzz, and it's just go, 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 and it's overdoing it. I can't tell you how many times I've been at a party and it gets to the end of the night and all the generators are leaving because they know when enough is enough. It's been enough. There's no benefit to sticking around longer. The energy has been used up, and now they can go to sleep, you know, be satisfied because they've used up their energy. But it's 4 a.m., 5 a.m., 6 a.m., and that projector is going, no, come on, let's have another drink, let's go out, let's do this, let's do that. Now it's funny because I'll hear a lot of projectors and, you know, manifestors and so on say, oh, you know, I get to sleep at a good time, I get lots of rest. Well, it's a selective thing. They do, but when they're all amped up and charged up, then they don't. So here's the thing, it's not like, you know, these not self themes aren't happening all the time. They're always there in the background, but you need to notice when they have been happening in your life. Like you can pinpoint particular flare-ups. Like maybe every day for a week, you're a projector and you're going to bed on time, and then one night, someone comes over and you get totally amped up and you stay up all night. That's the not self theme of the undefined sacral. Pushing yourself beyond your limits, beyond your capacities, and just, you know, doing too much. All right, so the 7th in the impact hierarchy is the root. So this is still not that strong. Of course, if it is your only undefined center, it'll be very strong. Like I know a guy who has 8 defined centers, and his only undefined center is the root. And for him, anytime I talk to him, what his life is like, what's going on, what the dilemmas are, what are the issues, it's always that he has too much to do. He has too much on his plate, which sounds like a sacral issue, but he's a manifesting generator, so it's not. It's actually that he's constantly in a hurry, like he's looking at the clock while we're having lunch. He can never relax. He can never slow down. And he's not taking time for himself to relax throughout the day, because that not self with the undefined root hates that feeling of pressure and is not gonna like take the time it needs to slow down and rest because it can't handle that pressure. So instead of like, hey, let's go to the park for an hour or two, he's like, I can't, gotta go, I gotta pick up this and do this, and, you know. So it sounds like a sacral issue of biting off more than he can chew, but it's not. It's a time issue of going faster than he should, of not slowing down in life. So the 6th most impactful is the head, and that's the other pressure center. The root and the head are the 2 pressure centers. So if you have undefined head, that's thinking about things that don't matter. And If you have undefined Ajna, which is the 5th most impactful, then you automatically have undefined head, because the Ajna is the only way the head can be activated. And so that 6th and 5th kind of are a pair, the head and the Ajna. And the Ajna, so the head is basically thinking about things that don't matter, or caring about things that it really shouldn't care about, that aren't actually important to it. And it just thinks it cares, and so it tries to be, you know, wow, that's so important, but it's not actually important to anybody, not even to you. And then we have the Ajna, and the Ajna is the not self theme of the undefined Ajna is trying to be certain and trying to know. It really wants to know stuff. It wants to know for sure. It just wants to know that truth, and it's not comfortable with uncertainty or with not knowing. So the deconditioning is to become more comfortable with not knowing. In fact, here's a mantra. There's a guy, Lars Hagland, on a human design Facebook group, who said, here's your mantra for you undefined head, undefined Ajna people. Don't know, don't care. Because you can notice how much you'll try to know and how much you'll care. Like, I have undefined head and Ajna, and I remember somebody said to me, hey Jonah, I want to immigrate to Australia. Can you help me, you know, just kind of figure that out? I didn't answer sacrally. I didn't go, you know, that would have been like, no, don't know, don't care. Instead, I was like, oh yeah, sure. Because, you know, also I have undefined ego, so I'm trying to prove my value to them and to myself and prove I'm not a worthless person. And, you know, I also have undefined solar plexus, so not wanting to hurt people's feelings and walking on eggshells around them and being kind of like that. So I go, yeah, sure. And then an hour later, I've been Googling and thinking about, do I kind of, you know, do I know anybody that I could connect them with who would help them immigrate to Australia? I don't know how you immigrate to Australia. I don't care about how to immigrate to Australia. Why did I just spend an hour doing that? That's the not self theme. So you can see that if you have undefined head, so much of what you're thinking about isn't important. And then how silly it is that you're literally at that point, not only is it not important, but then your undefined Ajna wants to be sure about it. So it's not important to you or anybody, but you're still trying to know for certain to be sure about it. And you're pretending to be certain and going, I am so positive that this is the truth of it, and so on. Okay, so that's the 6th and 5th. Now we get to the more strong ones, the stronger ones. The 4th is the spleen, the undefined spleen, holding on to what isn't good for you. So if you have undefined spleen, that's all about, yeah, I know that person was mean to me, but I can't break up because they make me feel safe. Or I'm just too attached. It's like attachment issues. Undefined spleen parents who just cling to their children and never let their children go. You know, undefined spleen partners who are the clingiest people. Now it's funny because I've seen defined spleen people be pretty clingy too. But the defined spleen is a different way of doing it. It's like the defined spleen doesn't need someone else to feel good. If you have undefined spleen, you literally just will sometimes feel cold and all alone and just kind of crummy, and your health won't feel good. You'll feel kind of sickly, all this stuff. And then you're around somebody who activates your spleen or has a defined spleen, and if they're really healthy anyway, you'll feel that health. Now, if they're unhealthy, you'll feel that too, because the undefined spleen is totally open to whatever they're putting out. But my point is, with undefined spleen, you can get really attached to people that make you feel good, really attached to things that make you feel good. Although, weirdly, I thought this would be where addiction comes from. Just a little side note, every center can have an addictive property to it. The undefined sacral can be, all like, they get hooked on that buzz and that energy buzz and don't want to go to sleep. So they can have their own kind of addictive personality. The undefined spleen can become addicted to certain habits that aren't good for them. However, it seems to me that actually most addiction is related to the head. I mean, certainly there are people who have defined head who also have those struggles, but it seems to me that here's what I've noticed, and this is a little key for you. If you have any sort of, habit that you don't like, habit that's outlived its usefulness. Like you're smoking cigarettes and you don't want to smoke cigarettes, or you're drinking too much, you don't want to drink, or you're scrolling on Reddit, or you're doing anything past the point where it's healthy. Think about what happened right before that, and chances are you've had a lot of mental activity, and it's a way to stop the chatter in your head. And that's actually, a lot of that is thinking about things that don't matter. So if you have undefined head, you're thinking about all the stuff that doesn't matter, it's going to make you want that cigarette or make you want that beer and so on. And, once you stop thinking about all that stuff, usually the impulse goes away. Okay, so we're on the spleen. The spleen is the fourth strongest. So the spleen, undefined spleen, it just wants to hold on to things, doesn't want to let go. It's kind of scared because spleen is a fear center. So it wants to hold on to what's familiar to it, what makes it feel good. Then we get to the so-called heartbreak hotel, the 3-2-1. And people say that you shouldn't use this term because it sounds negative, and it doesn't have to be negative. Just remember that all these centers can become the most tremendous sources of wisdom. But as the not-self, there can be dilemmas and there can be a lot of suffering. In fact, the not-self is almost, addicted to that suffering. It wants that charge. It wants that excitement of all the drama and stuff. So the so-called heartbreak hotel is the third strongest, which is the G center, undefined G center. The second strongest, which is the undefined solar plexus, and the strongest not-self conditioning, the not-self theme of the undefined ego. So together, the G center, the solar plexus, and the ego, if you have all three undefined, they say that you have the heartbreak hotel. Now, that's not a very nice thing to say, and of course every reflector has this, by definition, because reflectors have everything undefined. And it doesn't mean anything in terms of, can you have a happy, fulfilling life, all this stuff. All it means is, as the not-self, it's pretty rough, because you have the three strongest not-self centers, right? Now, I don't want to make it out to be that someone who only has undefined throat has an easier life. It's just that they're not going to have the not-self themes of wondering who they really are and searching for direction and searching for the right place, or not being afraid of the truth and not wanting to confront the truth and walking on eggshells and avoiding truth and avoiding confrontation. And ultimately, the most painful of all, the undefined ego, which is all about trying to prove yourself and trying to improve and trying so hard to keep promises and all this stuff. If you have undefined ego, don't try to keep your promises. Don't even make promises if you can help it. But if you do, don't try to keep them, because that's trying to use willpower you don't have. Because the ego is the center of willpower too. Self-esteem and willpower. So anyway, so these last three, these are the real core of the not-self. I mean, that undefined G center, so many people going through life feeling so lost and just always searching and always looking and basically just feeling like they don't have a home, like they don't really know where they're going, and also feeling like the grass is always greener. That's an undefined G center thing. The grass is always greener, looking for the better place, looking for the better relationship, and just always giving up and quitting whatever they're doing, changing their career, quitting the project they're working on, deciding they're going to be something else. You can't just decide. This is what defined G center people know. You can't just decide to be something else. You are what you are. And it happens naturally. You can't just be like, oh, done with that. I'm going to move here and do this and be that, Now, at the same time, I have defined G center. And I don't know anything about G center stuff, because there's a great potential for wisdom of learning all about it when it's undefined for you. So if you have undefined G center, you have this potential to learn so much about it when you stop using it to make decisions. That's the real key of it here, is that what I'm talking about is the way the not-self centers affect your decision making. So say you have undefined ego and solar plexus and G center. Someone offers you a job. You think to yourself, that undefined ego, is this going to help me improve? Is it going to help me prove myself? Is it going to show up somebody else who I feel threatened by? Is it going to prove to myself that I can keep a promise I made to myself or to somebody else? And then that undefined solar plexus. Is this going to be are they not going to call me out on my stuff? Is it not going to expose me too much? Is it going to let me kind of hide a little bit? Because that not self of the undefined solar plexus really doesn't want to be confronted with painful truths. And then the undefined G, is it going to give me a new direction in life? Is it going to give me purpose? Is it going to, you know, and so on. So you can see how as soon as you start making decisions with strategy and authority, the not self themes are powerless. They're absolutely powerless. Because if you're a generator and you're making a sacral decision, someone says, do you want this job? And you go, then take the job. Simple as that. And if you go, that means don't take the job. You don't like it, right? So learning how to follow your authority, that's what it's all about. And then the not self themes are totally powerless. They don't affect you in any negative way, and they become great sources of wisdom. And that's a really special thing, you know. Then you can become wise with that undefined ego about who's trustworthy and who isn't. Or you can become wise about other people's emotional states with that undefined solar plexus. Or you can become wise about who has a strong sense of identity and direction and purpose and who doesn't, and so on. So just something to kind of think about, to look at your own chart, particularly if you're a reflector or a single definition or triple split or wide split. In those cases, then the not self themes of the centers will be the most powerful, strongest conditioning themes. And just look at those and kind of look at where they are in that hierarchy. If you have undefined ego, that's automatically the strongest core issue for you. That's it. That's the main issue, the main dilemma, right? And if you have defined ego, but you have undefined solar plexus, then that's going to be your main dilemma. That's going to be your core issue. Spending your whole life walking on eggshells, avoiding showing people who you really are, not wanting to really reveal yourself too much, being afraid to say what you really want or show people, you know, instead showing them this kind of fake image that you think that they want to see, because you're too afraid to show them the real you, and avoiding all the painful truths and so on. Or say you have defined ego and you have defined solar plexus, but you have undefined G center. Then that's going to be your core issue. You're going to be spending your life, you know, as not self anyway, searching, looking, trying to find, thinking, if I don't find it myself, it's not going to be there. I have to go out there and make it happen. I have to find my love. I have to find my career. I have to find my profession. I have to find my perfect place. And continually disappointed or frustrated or bitter or angry, as the case may be, about the, you know, not working out. I thought this was the perfect community for me, and turns out it's not. I thought this was the perfect home for me, but it doesn't really feel like home. I thought this was the perfect place, and so on. And continually, this grass is always greener, grass is always greener. Or say you have all three of those defined, but you have undefined spleen. Then your core issue is going to be holding on to things that aren't good for you and not letting go, stuff like that. So, you know, you can figure it out yourself, what the strongest one is for you. But, you know, so that's the order. So I'll do it from strongest to weakest now, because I did it from weakest to strongest. The strongest not self-center is the ego. Number 2 is the solar plexus. Number 3 is the G center. Number 4 is the spleen. Number 5 is the Ajna. Number 6 is the head. Number 7 is the root. Number 8 is the sacral. And number 9 is the throat. So those are going to be, you know, your outermost one is what other people are going to see, and your innermost one is going to be the kind of core dilemma. And everything in between, they all kind of chain together to inflect it. All right, this has been the Human Design Deconditioning Guide with your host, Jonah Dempsey. And I am coming at you from Santa Fe. It just got kind of cold and gray here, but that's okay. I don't mind it. I'm from Seattle. All right, everyone who's watching, thanks for watching. If you like the videos, please subscribe. And if you have ideas for future human design topics, please post them in the comments. And if you'd like to comment about any of your own experiences of the not self themes, please do so as well. All right, thanks.